You're listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. Each week, your host, Polly Requa, interviews veterinarians and individuals in the pet industry from across the nation answering pet questions. Bark and Wag podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes can be found at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. That's BARKNWAG.com. Please remember to subscribe to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. Bark and Wag is dedicated to protecting our dogs through advocacy, education, and supporting like-minded dog lovers by selling custom pet products. Bark and Wag is excited to announce our new partnership with a Colorado hemp farm to produce a line of CBD products for your pets. Bark and Wag has CBD pet tincture available in 300, 750, 1200, and 2400 milligrams. Bark and Wag CBD is pet safe, no THC, it's made in the USA, and is CO2 extracted. Please check out Bark and Wag's website, barkandwag.com. That is BARK, to see our line of CBD and awesome merchandise. We love pooch ideas for podcasts and merchandise, so anytime send an email to Polly at barkandwag.com with your suggestions.
Welcome to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. I'm your host, Polly Requa. Today we're talking to Nicole Birkholzer, animal communicator and wellness specialist, along with being an author, speaker, educator, and podcaster. Welcome, Nicole. It's great to have you back on the show.
Oh, it's great to be back. I love being here.
Well, what I wanted to do is talk to you about when your dog is ill or has been injured, how do you deal with the timing and a peaceful transition when your dog is going to die?
Well, that's such a tough one, right? Because all of us, when we have these furry companions, we end up, I think most people would hope that the animal just falls asleep. And then I think we would be upset that we weren't there when the animal fell asleep. And at the same time, we can say, oh, we need to euthanize an animal or release it. And the animal might not be ready. So what do we know? When is the right time? Who am I to play God? Those are the feelings usually people have around this. And for me, it is so wonderful how we can actually, with a little bit of knowledge, become this beautiful guide actually by our animal's side in the end, or when the end is near. And to me, it's so important to get the animal's point of view. And when I talk about the animal's point of view, so if I have a client who calls me and says, so I don't know, but Jasper seems off. Is he ready to go? I can ask Jasper a couple of questions. Jasper can, first of all, I want to know, is he in pain? And if he says no, then I have another layer where I go, are you in discomfort? And often the animal says, yep, discomfort, yes. But guess what? Most people have discomfort. Once you're a little older, your shoulder aches or your hip aches or your heel aches. So they sometimes say, yeah, I have some discomfort, but on a number between 1 and 5, it's a 3. It's not a big deal to me. So we can already calm the person's mind and say yeah, he's a little uncomfortable, but don't worry about it too much. However, when we then get a little closer to the end, we run into other things where all of a sudden the body doesn't follow anymore. The body sometimes doesn't follow the mind. If there's dementia or senility, the animal tells me, oh, I want to go over there, but I stand in the room and I can't get my body to make it do. It's I don't know what to do about it. And then we come to the level of all of a sudden they don't eat anymore. And now the people are like, how can I feed him? Or what should I do? If he doesn't eat, he's going to die. And then the last level is usually I can't get up anymore. And that's often the point where for the animals, when they start pooing and peeing in the house, when they can't get up anymore, that's where the dignity level comes usually in, where the animal says, now this is not dignified anymore. So at times we actually literally make a contract and I will say, so how will your person know that you are ready to go? And the animal will either say, you will see it in my eyes, because sometimes their eyes become like this glazed, almost like, they're not even in their body. They're almost out of body already. Or they say, I can't get up anymore. Or if I start messing in the house, or if I can't get out of the house on my own anymore. And those are great indicators that can give you, as the caretaker, a sense of order almost while you're in this period of uncertainty. It can give you a sense of order to say, okay, I'm going to look for that. And until then, I'm going to enjoy being with my animal.
Yeah, it's a fine line.
It's a very fine line. And I think here's another thing I just thought of, that a lot of animals at the end often say, oh my God, let's get a couple of things organized, like my pain is not that bad, or my pain is X, and do that for me. Watch out that I can still go out to the bathroom. And now let's stop talking about it and focusing and being so obsessed with me dying. Because the worst part for the animal often is that the person says at the end, oh, I didn't do enough, or I didn't get the right resources. The animal always says they trust that we do our best. And they always say any emotions like guilt, shame, or worry are pollutants. They are basically just polluting the channel between us, between our heart connection, between our love. If you spend more time being worried about, oh, am I doing the right thing, versus enjoying the last 5 days or 5 weeks or 5 months, the animal says you're wasting your time.
Okay.
Right?
Well,
because they don't want the last memory to be like, oh, I put a diaper on, and then we gave him a syringe of this, and then we intravenously did that and whatnot. And that's the only thing left at the end. They are like, let's remember all the good things, and let's look at what can I still do? I can still snuggle with you. You know, cats are great snugglers, especially at the end. You know, it's not just dogs, it's cats, it's horses, it's any animal that is like, let me be as dignified and as wholesome, and let's recognize what I'm still good at versus just sitting with what's no longer. Because that's, again, to an animal, you know, animals look for ease. They don't look for stress. And if you're looking at the good things, that's more ease.
So can you go over the tips again of
yes,
what an owner should look for? Because I'm on a few pug Facebook groups, and pugs seem to live forever. And owners try to keep them alive forever.
Because they're so cute. Nobody wants to be without a pug, right?
Yeah. And I look at our last pug, and I mean, he just couldn't breathe. I mean, so I probably should have put him down sooner, but my children didn't want it to happen. I didn't want it to happen. I mean, he was our little buddy.
Yeah. It is, like you said, such a fine line. You know, there is the part where we don't want to take a life that's not ready to be taken, but we also want to understand the level of pain and discomfort, because if we really love them, then we want to let them go while it's still manageable in a way. So, you know, I think the pain and comfort level is important, because I think there are some situations where the pain is just so unbearable that the animal is already more out of the body, like I said, than not. And you can see that, right? But if your animal sleeps most of the day, if your animal stands in the room and doesn't know what to do, if your animal, you know, kind of just stands there and it's like, okay, where am I? Why did I get up? What am I doing? And then if the animal can barely move, potentially, we need to look at the level of pain and comfort. And, you know, that's the benefit of being an animal, that when it gets too much, you can be let go or released. And then, you know, again, sometimes, you know, the eyes change a lot. They get harder. Sometimes I have a goat who has a leg issue, and I'm constantly right now like, is this still fair? Is this not fair? And there are days when I see her pupil is really large, and I can tell she's in a lot of discomfort, and I give her the pain meds. If she gets better, I say yes. But if she were for a few days with that expression in her eyes, I would know it's time to let go. So I think that's why people like myself are helpful, where you can, you know, within 45 minutes, you can really get an assessment of the situation, make some agreements, and then say, which is sometimes the nice thing at the end, because some of these animals, right, had renal issues or they had some kind of health issue and they were on a special diet. And you can just make the last few days or the last week something where they can eat whatever, because we don't care about the salt or we don't care about things. And we can just make this like a celebration at the end for the animal, because we know where everybody's at and we make an agreement that, we celebrate and then make a date for Friday for the release.
Right.
Yeah,
it's hard. It's so hard when yeah, it's hard. So it's, and as you get older, it becomes harder, I think.
And some animals, I had this beautiful dog earlier last year who, she said, and she had good days and bad days. And that's, I think, the trickiest part, right? There are often days where you go like, oh, I think she's doing actually fine. And then, whatever, all of a sudden it gets warmer, the animal is like flat out, or some kind of situation happens and you're like, I don't even know what happened, but all of a sudden she's not herself anymore. And so in this case, the dog said, by the time summer comes, when it's so hot that I cannot stand it, I want to have left my body. Well, the people, this was, I think, in March or April, they enjoyed the dog till July, and the heat came and the dog was out, like really just drawn out and exhausted. And they were like, you know what, it's time to make an appointment. But what relief to know that there is something we can look for. And until then, we're going to stop thinking about it, because she will let us know. And I think that's also the thing, that we need to trust that our animals will tell us, and that we then need to read those signs. When there is, sometimes I say, when there is not enough joy left for the animal, it's time to say goodbye. If it's not joyous anymore, if there's a 2% joy factor in a day, that's probably not enough.
Yeah, right. And I think as more humans connect with their pets, it just becomes harder. They're just great.
Well, I think so. The other thing is that animals always talk about that they are still around. For an animal, they don't disappear. And in my experience, it is not that they go over the rainbow bridge and are, now galloping through a field on the other side, or trotting through the woods. The animals are, for me at least, and this is what's so fascinating with different animal communicators, right? Each person perceives or gets the information that kind of they are destined to bring forth. And in my case, the animals have shown me again and again, we are all part of the larger consciousness, and we eventually happen to find a body, however that happens, and we get embodied consciousness, right? That's who we all are as beings, as mammals. And then, and even plants and trees and everything is a manifestation of consciousness. And then when the body finally says, I can't do this anymore, the consciousness, and that's when I talk about leaving the body already, it's almost like the spirit is already transcending and is ascending. And so eventually the consciousness leaves the body behind, but the animal is usually still around us. And people tell me all the time, oh yeah, I feel him jump on the bed, or I feel him next to me on the couch, or whatnot. And the animals always say, if you would just realize I'm still here and engage with me and ask me for help and, reach out to me sitting quietly and saying like, oh my God, Luke, what would you do? I have this big decision. What should I do? You will get an answer from them. So the neat thing is, if we can give ourselves a chance to expand into this consciousness realm, spiritual realm, whatever we want to call it, we realize that we're still surrounded by them.
Oh, that's really neat. That's kind of comforting.
Right?
The other day I was in the kitchen and Chuck the pug used to sit, right at my feet. And so half the time when I would be cooking, which is not a lot, my girls would say, I always was tripping over him.
Yep.
And the other day I just kind of tripped and I thought, oh, where's my baby?
He's probably right there, Polly.
Yes.
Yep.
So that's neat.
Yep. And, and that leads also to the part where people then often say to me, oh, will he come back or will she come back, as another animal in terms of reincarnating in another version? Because that's a very common theme among certainly animal communicators, that people ask that. And it's interesting. Even there, I always get this message that they say, well, the human can ask for what they want. What parts do they want back? And the animal usually says, I will never come back as the same because I came into your life at a certain point for a reason, and we had a journey together that evolved both of us. And if I come back, you can ask for a few traits that you really loved, but I will be the next version that will also help you become your next version, because there is no staying the same in life, right? Change is the constant. So the animals are so smart about understanding that we are all evolving together. I mean, how much have you evolved to Chuck the pup, right? You became a whole new dog person because of him. He taught you things and whatnot. And so each animal does. And so they really love the idea of us evolving with each animal. And so they like to come back, but often in that next teacher role or in the next caretaker role that you need for that period of your time.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that was great. So how do listeners get in touch with you?
Hop right over to my website, mindful-connections with an S, plural.com, or you can look for my name, Nicole Birkholzer. And you just, sign up for a 15-minute free call where we can meet and greet and chat a little bit and see if we're vibrating on the same frequency, or just book a session and, we'll talk for 45 minutes with your furry or feathery animal.
Well, thank you for being a guest, and I look forward to having you back.
Thanks so much, Polly. Always so much fun.
And if you're curious about chatting with your animal, head over to my website to get $50 off on your first phone session. And the discount code is BarkNWAG, BARKNWAG.
Wow, that's terrific. So that's $50 off, and put in the promo code BARKNWAG. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, www.barkandwag.com, to your friends and other pet owners. Have a pressing question for a veterinarian? Ask your question at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. This has been a KFR production. Join us next time for another edition of Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk.